Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. A colossus-sized starfish escapes from a laboratory and begins to eliminate everyone who crosses its path, while turning them into zombies. Today we will recap the story of the 2021 movie, S-Squad. The US government needs to carry out a top-secret, high-risk mission in a South American country called Corto Maltese. Corto Maltese is a country that recently suffered a military coup and became an extremely cruel dictatorship. In addition to the obvious problems this entails, in this country there is a scientific research base called Jotunheim. In the laboratories of this place there is an alien creature that the old government was studying to try to use as a weapon, but as the country was taken over by General Luna, an anti-American military, the United States desperately needs to take all research out of the enemy's hand. To complete the mission, Amanda, who is the director of the prison for supervillains and the mastermind behind the mission, recruits some of the prisoners to form the S-Squad and infiltrate the country, where they must find a geneticist known as the Thinker, and use it as a gateway to Jotunheim, thus finally being able to completely destroy the labs. After a long flight, Group 1 led by Colonel Flagg and Harley Quinn finally arrive at the beach where they must start the infiltration, but as soon as they take the position, we discover that one of those crazy people sold his own team to stay alive. As the man approaches the army to get out of the crossfire and go to the president to collect his bounty, an enemy sniper shoots the traitor right in the head, making a hole in his face. As they are at a clear numerical and strategic disadvantage, Colonel Flagg asks for permission to retreat, but Amanda refuses the request and orders them to advance. With no options, the group advances against the enemy army, initiating combat. Although they are all metahumans and manage to inflict heavy damage on the enemy army, one by one the group members are defeated. Seeing his comrades being slaughtered, a supervillain named Savon freaks out and starts swimming towards the ocean trying to escape, but as a way to prevent others from having the same attitude, Amanda simply blows the man's head off. It turns out that an explosive was implanted in the back of each of their heads to prevent disobedience, and Amanda used it to make the Savon's brain explode. On another part of the coast, Group 2, led by Robert Dubois, a supervillain known as Bloodsport, manages to reach the beach and enter the country unnoticed, as all the military are busy dealing with the other group, which due to the gigantic numerical disadvantage, are easily massacred. With the only survivors being Harley Quinn, who was taken prisoner by the military, and Colonel Flagg, who tried to escape through the woods, but was found by a group of rebels in the middle of the jungle. After all these events, the current S-Squad is formed by the sharpshooters Bloodsport and Peacemaker, the King Shark Nanawe, the Ratcatcher Cleo and a weirdo called the Polka Dot. As it is extremely dark in the middle of the rainforest, the squad decides to camp until dawn so they can continue with the mission in daylight, but as soon as the sun rises, Amanda informs them that she has found Colonel Flagg's location and orders them to temporarily change the mission focus to go rescue him. As soon as they arrive in captivity, the squad goes into action and manages to eliminate all the enemies with extreme ease, but they made a big mistake in this mission. It turns out that this place was not a captivity, but the camp of the rebels who were negotiating an alliance with Colonel Flagg against the current dictator. Even furious at having eliminated some members of her guerrilla, Saul, the leader of the rebels, decides to go ahead with the alliance and help them defeat the enemy army. In the middle of the forest, Harley Quinn, who until then was a simple prisoner, is invited by the president to go to his house for a conversation. General Luna asks for her hand in marriage, and as she doesn't have the best of mental sanity, the woman accepts. However, seeing the man threatening to eliminate even the rebels' families, Harlequin rebels at the idea of hurting children and shoots the president right in the chest, who lies in a blood puddle in agony until finally losing his life. With the death of President Luna, who takes over his post as General Suarez, an even crueler dictator. As a first measure, he orders them to arrest Harley Quinn so that he can interrogate her, but even though she suffers several attacks with a stun gun and many blows that make her faint, she does not surrender her companions. Still inside the woods, Saul and the rest of the squad walk until they find Milton, an informant of Saul, but when they reach him, the man is wanted by the dictator's army and would be killed if the Bloodsport and the rest of the group didn't reach him in time to save him. As soon as they save the man, the group discovers that the Thinker usually goes to a nightclub, so they go undercover to blend in with the local people and capture him, but as soon as they enter the city they completely loses the communication with Amanda. Upon arriving at the nightclub, the group waits until the target arrives, which doesn't take long to happen. Seeing the Thinker sitting at the bar, Bloodsport slowly goes and approaches him, threatening to kill him if he doesn't cooperate. With the target surrendered, the group begins to take him out, but when they are close to the exit, the military arrives at the scene looking for any American. Knowing that they will be cornered if they try to escape, Bloodsport asks Cleo and the Polka Dot to go out with the Thinker through the back while he, the Peacemaker and the Colonel distract the military, but the method they use to distract the enemy is to literally surrender. Inside the military convoy that is taking them to the prison, one of the soldiers tells about Harley Quinn being brutally interrogated by the general. After receiving the information they wanted, the trio were finally able to break free. With everyone free, the Peacemaker steals a shotgun from the body of one of the soldiers and fires it into the front seat, hitting the pilot in the head. With no one to control the vehicle, the Peacemaker tries to put his arm through the hole and hold the steering wheel to avoid a truck that is coming towards them, but he can't turn the car in time and they end up leaving the road, flipping several times. Luckily, everyone manages to get out of the car unharmed and are ready to proceed with the Jotunheim operation, but knowing that Harley Quinn is still alive, Colonel Flagg decides to divert the focus of the main mission once again and go to the rescue of the last member of the team. Unable to continue his interrogation session with the unconscious Harley Quinn, General Suarez asks his henchman to warn him when she regains consciousness and starts to leave the building, but as soon as he leaves the room, we discover that the supervillain was actually just faking fainting. She catches him from behind and breaks his neck. Harley Quinn then takes the key that was in the criminal's belt and manages to free herself. Totally free, she takes the soldiers' weapons and begins to clean the place, eliminating everyone she comes across, leaving a veritable sea of bodies and blood around her. Once outside, she finds her group trying to break into the building, thwarting the plan they devised to rescue her. Now with the entire squad assembled, they approach Jotunheim and begin to map out the strategy, which is actually quite simple. They start by ordering the mice controlled by Cleo to gnaw through the security camera wires, and with that done, the Thinker starts driving a bus where the entire squad is hiding to Jotunheim. Once they pass the first military blockade, the S squad finally springs into action, taking out all the security guards. With no more obstacles, the team finally enters the scene. Once inside, they separate into two groups, one led by Bloodsport, who is responsible for arming the bombs around the building, while the second, led by the Colonel, goes to the basement of the facility to find the files of the operation, but as soon as they arrive in the lab, they come across hundreds of people in cages, with starfish stuck in their faces. This is the Starfish Project. Well, but what does this project consist of? 30 years ago, some American astronauts found and captured an alien being shaped like a starfish and named it Starro. Seeing the creature's warlike potential, the United States decided to conduct experiments with the extraterrestrial, but as it would be a great scandal if they discovered such an experiment being carried out in the country, the Americans made an agreement with the former government of Corto Maltese to conduct the experiments at Jotunheim. And now, thanks to the military coup, they want to end all records of the experiments, both to avoid controversy and to prevent a weapon like this from falling into the hands of the new dictators. And why exactly is the US government interested in Starro's powers? Basically because this creature manages to replicate itself like little starfish and stick to the faces of its victims. When this happens, in addition to feeding on the host's proteins causing their death, the extraterrestrial copies also take full control of their victims' bodies, turning them into zombies and consequently an extension of Starro's mind. Realizing that he and his team were used as puppets, Colonel Flagg goes to the server and takes the hard drive with all the records of the case with the intention of showing it to the press and revealing everything to the global media. But the Peacemaker doesn't think that this is a good idea and tries to stop it. According to him, if the experiments are made public, a global revolt against the United States will happen, which could end up triggering a new world war. To prevent this, the Peacemaker thinks the best option is to destroy Jotunheim along with all the files, erasing all traces of this utterly bizarre research project in order to keep the peace. The atmosphere starts to get tense, but at that moment the Bloodsports group detonates the bombs, which causes an impact that crushes everyone in the laboratory. Thanks to the destruction of the place, Starro finally breaks free and uses his tentacles to dismember the Thinker and throw him against a glass wall. After some time unconscious, Flagg and the Peacemaker finally regain their consciousness and start a very violent fight for possession of the hard drive. Thanks to his military training, the Colonel manages to do better in the fight, but when he is about to eliminate the Peacemaker, the supervillain manages to grab a piece of tile from the floor and stick it in Flagg's chest, piercing his heart, not giving the slightest chance to survive. Seeing what the Peacemaker has done, Cleo grabs the hard drive and starts to run away, but is cornered quite easily, and just as she's about to be eliminated, we're taken 8 minutes back in time to follow the progress of Group 2. While they are setting the bombs, the Bloodsport who is on watch sees the reinforcements coming through the window, and knowing that it is only a matter of time before the extra troops can invade the place, they decide to hurry, but because of that they end up being careless and are found by a couple of soldiers who start shooting at them. Everyone manages to protect themselves, with the exception of Milton, who ends up losing his life. Fighting back, the Polka Dot fires hundreds of red-hot plastic circles at the military, making their bodies melt like butter. But he doesn't even have time to relax. A few more soldiers find them and once again start shooting. By reflex, Polka throws his plastic discs at enemies. But to their misfortune, one of the projectiles touches the bag of explosives Milton was carrying and blows up the entire floor. With the impact, the acrylic of an aquarium that was in the building ends up breaking, causing a great flood through the premises and releasing some carnivorous creatures that begin to attack Nanaue. To make matters worse, the explosion ended up activating the devices on the lower floors, damaging the entire structure of the facility. When the building starts to tilt, the current ends up throwing the king shark out, causing him to fall from a height of at least 40 meters. Upon seeing the humanoid creature on the ground, the military starts shooting at it, but the projectiles do not cause significant damage. As soon as the men start loading their weapons, Nanaue stands up, and furiously runs towards one of the soldiers and rips his head off with a single bite. At that moment, the building, which is already badly damaged, finally starts to collapse, forcing all the military to retreat. Trying to save themselves, the trio of supervillains try to jump to another part of the building a little more stable, but Bloodsport ends up falling into a fragile part that begins to collapse, which makes him stop right on the floor of the laboratory, where Cleo and the Peacemaker are. After a few seconds of facing each other, the two shooters fire at each other and we can clearly see the two projectiles advancing towards each other. And when they collide, the squad leader's ammunition shatters the other projectile and hits the Peacemaker's neck, causing him to bleed to death. With things a little calmer, Cleo explains the entire hard drive situation to Bloodsport while the rest of the squad joins them, but the lull is short-lived. After all the demolition, Starro finally manages to free himself and resolves to take action. Upon seeing the colossal creature, the military starts shooting at the kaiju, but Starro unleashes his mini replicas to possess the soldiers' bodies, taking them out of circulation and turning them into his zombies. As they watch the creature advancing with its army towards the city, the radio communication finally works again. Apparently what was blocking the signal was in Utenheim. Knowing the destruction that Starro is capable of causing, Bloodsport asks Amanda what they should do, but the woman considers the mission completed and orders them to return to the United States. But knowing that millions of civilians would lose their lives if they do nothing, the squad simply refuses to follow the order and advances towards the creature. Amanda then threatens to set the explosives at the base of the squad members' skulls, but just as she is about to press the button, one of the employees hits the woman in the head, causing her to pass out. Without Amanda trying to stop them, the S-Squad rushes towards the creature, ready to strike hard. Bloodsport then asks Harley Quinn to advance across the rooftops while Nanaue starts biting Starro to distract the creature. Taking advantage of the moment, Polka shoots his spheres towards the giant star, melting one of the animal's limbs, but he gets distracted and starts celebrating too soon, and because of that he ends up being crushed by Starro. At that moment, the thousands of zombies begin to corner the Bloodsport. But realizing that Cleo will be hit by the creature, the man runs towards the girl and manages to push her away in time to avoid being hit by the alien monster. But that doesn't change the fact that they still haven't defeated Starro and his zombies. But when they are about to be caught by the alien's puppets, Cleo summons a veritable army of evil rats that begin to climb on the mutated starfish, gnawing everything they find on their way. Taking advantage of the gap, Harley Quinn jumps toward Starro and uses her spear to pierce the creature's eye, opening a hole that the rodents use to access the monster's interior and gnaw through the entire internal structure, devouring it from the inside out. With the damage caused by the rodents, the creature falls to the ground, already lifeless, which kills all the zombies at once. At the same time, Saul and his guerrillas invade the general's meeting room. She and her companions simply shoot them all, taking their country out of the hands of the dictators. Once Amanda regains consciousness, Bloodsport shows her that he has the hard drive and uses the files to pressure her to leave them alone. And knowing the trouble that information could cause the United States, the woman accepts the deal. With this, the hard drive files are kept secret, but all of them are finally free. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.